Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name's Chris Calabucas, and once again, we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation, startups, the future. Not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts. I greatly appreciate it. Plus, if you happen to be listening to this show or watching this show in the Metaverse, if you are currently in the Metaverse with your goggles on or your virtual reality goggles on or whatever you are, if you are currently in the Metaverse and watching this show or listening to this show, please drop a note in the comments below. I want to know how many of my watchers or listeners are in the Metaverse right now. I'll wait. You're not. None of you are in the Metaverse. None of you are in the Metaverse. None of you are in the Metaverse. It is so early to be thinking about the Metaverse, to be doing things in the Metaverse, to feel like you're going to be in the Metaverse, that I don't understand what this all hype is about the Metaverse. Now, people say, Chris, you're a futurist. Come on, get with the program. Get onto the Metaverse. Understand the Metaverse. Get in with the Metaverse. It's on the cutting edge. You got to be there. Like Web3 and all the other stuff. You got to be in there when you need to be in there. And I'm like, yes, I can see it coming. What I've always said is that everything will happen. Every possible thing will happen. Every possible thing that is physically possible that we can imagine will happen. The only question is, when will it happen? And if you can figure out when it will happen, then you've won everything. And when it comes to the Metaverse, if you ask me, it's just not there. I don't know why brands and all sorts of companies are throwing millions of dollars of investment into the Metaverse when there's hardly anybody there. It's like buying an expensive theater and putting in premiere movies in a neighborhood that nobody ever wants to visit. You see, the problem with the Metaverse is that we have yet to build good interfaces for it. Those VR helmets that you see, whether they're connected or not connected or whatever, whether they're quartered or not quartered, even if they're super amazing graphical design, it's still an unnatural interface. VR is an unnatural interface. Human beings have yet to get used to or evolve into the ability to use that kind of virtual reality interface. I mean, we've been able to fool the senses into making them think that they're in some kind of alternate universe. I've done this before. I've done VR helmets. I've done some really sophisticated VR helmets, and I've been in a VR movie. I've seen all of this stuff. And yes, it does give you a sense of being immersed in the content. It does give you that sense of being immersed in the content. But still, you never lose your sense of self. You never really leave the reality that we're currently in. And our senses aren't really used to that type of interface. It's just not ready for us yet. And the problem is, I think, and some people will disagree with me, I've talked to many people who disagree with me, they say, well, why can't we just use our senses? Our senses are super tuned to be able to take these optical inputs and the audio inputs and the tactical inputs and the smell inputs and all that stuff. And we should be able to build devices that will create smells and sights and sounds that will allow us to replicate a universe, replicate a real universe or a fake universe or whatever. If I wanted to travel to Rome and experience Rome, I should be able to just slap on my VR helmet and walk around Rome and feel like I'm actually there. In fact, if you think about it, why couldn't there be a bot riding around Rome, walking in the same way I'm walking, so that I can experience it as if I was actually there? But the reality is that you're not experiencing it like you're there. It's fake. It's not real. You're not really experiencing it sensorily all the way around. We can't do that yet. We can't do that yet. Now, some of you may disagree. And at one point, I was also of the mind that it really doesn't matter. And I've read this somewhere, that audiovisual memories, like what you're watching right now on YouTube, audiovisual memories like a video or a movie or a TV show or anything like that, or even especially the metaverse, human beings cannot differentiate memories of reality and memories of something constructed like this. So in the future, when you're thinking back about listening to me talk, you have no idea, or you may not remember if I was in front of you talking to you or in person. You don't know if this is real or fake based on your memory, because your memory is a distance away from the thing that occurred, and you can't, as a human being, differentiate between what's real and what's not real based on audio-visual inputs. Your memories will think that you actually experienced it. So if you go to Rome and walk around Rome and think about Rome and then come home from Rome, or if you took a VR trip to Rome, walk around Rome, think about Rome, a year later you might actually believe you went to Rome, because the memories of the VR experience and the memories of the actual experience would be conflated together. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference as to whether or not you were there. At least that's what I've read. But if you ask me, the only way the metaverse will really work is if we do something about bypassing our senses, because any contraption that we put on ourselves is going to, how should I say this, interfere with the experience, right? That's why I think that AR and VR haven't really taken off, because somebody like Apple, a company like Apple's consumer electronics company, has not come out with AR glasses. When they come out with AR glasses, then you might see something interesting happening in the AR front. But if you ask me, right now, it's still way too early to get into the metaverse. It's still way too early to think about the metaverse, and we really need that system that can jack into our brains, bypass all of our senses, and go straight into it. Because if you think about it, I mean, we might be able to do sight and sound really well, but what about touch? What about smell? We can't do those yet. We have to be able to provide the full sensory experience for us to say that we are truly living in a metaverse. So until we figure out some way of jacking ourselves directly into the AI, jacking ourselves directly into the metaverse, bypassing our current senses, being able to simulate our senses inside of our brains, only then will we say that we can actually be living in a true metaverse. Only when we can bypass our senses can we say we're actually part of the metaverse. And if you think about it, once we bypass our senses, are we still human? Are we still human beings if we've bypassed our senses? Because some philosophers would tell you that we are only human because we live in this body with these senses. Once we bypass these senses, are we still human beings? Can we still act like human beings? Do we have a completely different set of morals and ethics if we no longer live in this body that we're in? Are we still human beings when we've been removed from the body? That's something that we need to talk about. We need to think about it. When we disconnect ourselves from the human experience, from the body, are we still human, or are we something else? Are we an entity? Think about it this way, science fiction-y. Let's say at one point in the future we would be able to figure out how to take our personalities out of our brains and upload them into a machine. Are we still human when we've disconnected ourselves from our bodies? Or are we something else? Metaverse is not here yet, folks. It may be here one day, but once it does get here, will we still be who we are when we get into it? That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.